Hello everyone and welcome back. Now for anyone that's been watching the channel since literally the beginning, so like 11 months ago, you'll remember that one of my first videos was actually covering a potential Cenozoic DLC in Jurassic World Evolution 2. Considering when I released that video it was my most viewed video and I did get a rather large amount of hate for it surprisingly, it did sort of, hit home, and I wanted to return to the topic because the reason I was getting so much hate for that video was morally down to the fact that, no one really saw the opportunity for non-dinosaur creatures to be in Jurassic World Evolution 2. Which was totally justifiable, and I do understand that, but, 11 months on, we've now got the Dimetrodon, a Dynapsid, and not actually a dinosaur, in addition to just knowing that Frontier are willing to, quote-unquote, extend their horizons in terms of our species roster. So, if you haven't figured it out already, in today's video we will be returning to the idea that maybe, just maybe, we can get a Cenozoic DLC at some point in Jurassic World Evolution 2. And as always, if you do go on to enjoy today's video, please do consider liking and subscribing, as your support is greatly appreciated here on the channel. But with that being said, let's not waste any more time and enjoy the video. Now, I feel the reason I got so much hate for that video 11 months ago was down to the fact that we had about 2 species field guides and an announcement trailer, and, people were just a bit confused as to how I got Cenozoic DLC really out of that. However, almost a year on, over 1,000 subscribers later, I do actually have some form of evidence that could suggest that potentially, and I'm not at all saying this with certainty, potentially we could be getting a Cenozoic DLC in the near future for Jurassic World Evolution 2. So for today's video I want to sort of split it up into 2 sections, the first of which being, not the concrete evidence, but the stuff that's already in the game that could imply that, perhaps Frontier do have something in the works. And the second half of the video being discussing how they could really implement these new creatures into the game. But before I get into any of it, I don't want to receive that much hate for this video as I did back then, morely because I'm just going to say I'm not saying anything with certainty, and again this is speculation, as all my videos pretty much are. So, if you want to believe any of this stuff, then feel free to, but, if of course it never does come to JW2, do take it with a pinch of salt, and just remember, I did tell you that this isn't all true, this is just speculation. But with that in mind, my first piece of evidence, and pretty much all of my evidence that I really have, does come courtesy of the Dominion Biosyn expansion. So you can probably see where I'm headed with this, but with Frontier implementing feathers, snowy maps, and generally just snowy textures, and among other things, there's definitely, potential here for more feathered creatures, and more specifically Cenozoic creatures. And the first thing I really want to talk about here is the Sierra Nevada map, aka Owen's Ranch, the Chaos Theory for Jurassic World Dominion. Now if you don't know this map, it's literally the only map in the game that really has snow onto this level that isn't Washington or Oregon, and is a blatant snow map. And before you come at me, I'm well aware that this map's in the game literally down to the fact that it was in the movie, but I also just want to highlight the fact that it's a snow map, and, when you think of Cenozoic creatures, you generally associate stuff like your woolly mammoth or, Elasmotherium, stuff like that. You generally associate them with snow. And now that we've got this new environment that really doesn't, necessarily suit any of our dinosaurs other than our very, very few feathered ones, it seems a bit almost random to really have this map in the game other than just for the Chaos Theory. And I'm not at all saying they're going to repurpose it just to suit this Cenozoic DLC, but my point is, there's this new environment, there's new storms, there's this new biome, and realistically, if you want to make that realistic park, there's only 5 or 4 dinosaurs you can really use in this park because of the feathers. And that is, of course, if you're going for realism. If you're not, then, whatever floats your boat. But that's just the point I'm saying. There's, so much potential with a snowy map and, potentially hinting at a Cenozoic DLC in the future that I can definitely see there being some sort of working in twos here with the snowy maps and a Cenozoic DLC. However, that doesn't really bring much into the conversation of Cenozoic DLC being literally a map that we saw in a movie. However, I do have 2 other points that I want to discuss in this video regarding the potential DLC. And with that being said, point numero dos is the saber-toothed tiger from Camp Cretaceous. Now, I've indefinitely mentioned this point before, but I feel there's no better time to bring it up than there is now, because Camp Cretaceous is canon. There is a Camp Cretaceous DLC in the game, and there is rumours of a second Camp Cretaceous DLC with the arrival of Season 5. And I'm not going to talk about this too much, but my point here is, with the Dominion Biosyn expansion, we only received the Quetzalcoatlus. The Quetzalcoatlus being the only large pterosaur actually available in the game. And it's, of course, the only way to get it is through paying for it, like, separately from the main game. So if we do go on to receive this second Camp Cretaceous DLC, I don't actually see it being too far-fetched if we did receive the Smilodon in this DLC, and it'd be like its own standalone thing while we wait for an eventual Cenozoic DLC. And I feel like this would actually be the best way to really introduce Cenozoic creatures to Jurassic World Evolution 2, because, you know, we've seen them do it with the Quetzalcoatlus, and actually when you put it into the grand scheme of things, it's not actually that different of a scenario if they do decide to introduce the Smilodon with a second Camp Cretaceous DLC. And this does actually tie in nicely to my next point, which is feathers. Now, as we know, and as I'm sure I've mentioned a million times in this video already, the Dominion Biosyn expansion did introduce feathers, and Frontier are responsible for other projects like Planet Zoo, which, you know, have lions in them, elephants, and, you know, a lot of these animations and textures could literally just be boarded over into Jurassic World Evolution 2 with minimal effort and offer us these new creatures pretty much just like that. And I know that the process isn't, well, just like that, but my point here is that none of this, you know, if they do eventually decide to turn to a Cenozoic DLC, none of it's really new to Frontier, and a lot of the stuff in the game, or their other games as a matter of fact, could just literally be boarded over into Jurassic World Evolution 2 with slight tweaks just to fit the sort of direction and aesthetic of the game, and it's literally that simple. Like, just to sort of put it into perspective, this is an idea I had last night. Imagine if we got a port of a sloth from Planet Zoo times by like 10 with a similar animation rig to the Therizinosaurus, and boom, just like that you've got yourself a Megatherium. And I know again it's not a just like that process, but my overall point is that this stuff isn't actually as sort of impossible as we initially thought it was when the game got announced, because of all these, you know, new DLCs, new animations, and generally just broader ideas after getting our hands on the game for these several months that we've had it for. And I'm not at all saying with certainty that we'll get a Cenozoic DLC, but I'm just saying that the idea of it doesn't seem too, again, impossible as it did when the game was announced and when I initially made that first video 11 months ago. And again, with my point with the animation ports, you know, with the snakes, you could, you know, put some of those animations over and boom, Titanoboa. Like, again, I know it's not that simple. I know animation is a long, tedious process, but the idea of, you know, this stuff not being new to Frontier makes me think that, again, it's not impossible and is actually doable in Jurassic World Evolution 2. So overall, while my evidence is definitely slimmer than it is, you know, actually leading to a potential Cenozoic DLC, I feel like there's definitely potential, and more potential than really ever, for this DLC. And if we are going to get it, I reckon that the best way to really approach it is, as I say, with the Smilodon in the Camp Cretaceous DLC, just sort of introduce us to these new waters. You know, they do that. We've got one snowy map, we've got several feathered dinosaurs in addition to a Cenozoic creature, and, you know, just like that, they can gradually take their time with the Cenozoic DLC, and just like that, we've got an entirely new era in our game, or the Cenozoic era. But that has been all from me. If you have enjoyed today's video, please do consider liking and subscribing. If we can try and hit 30 likes, then I'll be very happy. And of course, if you do want to see me return to this topic, do feel free to let me know down in the comments, as I have really enjoyed making this video, and if you do want more, then let me know. But with that being said, thanks for watching, and I do hope to catch you in the next one.